Let's talk about the Dortmunder series by Donald Westlake. I think this is the third of these Donald Westlake ones. The Dortmunder series. Dortmunder is the name of the central character, John Dortmunder. Began, I think, in 1968, 1969 with a novel called The Hot Rock, and then continued pretty much to the end of Westlake's life. I believe he died around 2007. 14 books, and they're very, very funny. If you need a quick takeaway about the Dortmunder books, they're very, very funny, and they are consistent in quality. They're all Everyone's going to have their little favorites, but they're all pretty much as good as any of the others. The main thing that differentiates them is that as time went on, they get longer. The first book was made into a movie, which I think I mentioned in one of these talks, starring Robert Redford. Westlake rightly pointed out that the Dortmunder character is meant to be a loser with bad luck, and that's kind of hard for Robert Redford to play because he seems so not a loser. Movie's still pretty good. I recommend it. Yeah, the main thing about the Dortmunder books, as opposed to the Parker books or other crime books, is it's okay to enjoy them and to be sympathetic to the main characters, even though they are thieves, because they are that kind of fictional thief that doesn't exist really in real life. I mean, maybe here and there, but basically they're like good guy thieves. They are they're decent people who are generally ethical. They just happen to make a living by stealing stuff. But Dortmunder is the main guy. He's like the planner. He has a good friend named Andy Kelp, which I still love as a name. Andy's like the number two. In most of the books, Dortmunder's uh, effectively his wife, although I don't believe they're legally married, May, makes an appearance. A character named Tiny is really common. He's like the muscle guy. He's not violent, although he's capable of that. He's there to like move things and be strong and intimidating. And they'll have like a wheels guy, a driver named Merch. Also, sometimes Merch's mom shows up, and that's all she's called is Merch's mom. So the whole series has that sort of that formulaic dusting that you get in sort of the groove with, and you look forward to certain beats that are going to occur. You look forward to that moment when they're going to gather and talk about the job. You look forward to the interactions between the characters, which are very generally predictable, and then you can enjoy the environment that they're set out in, the job they're trying to do. The thing about these thieves, I said, like they're not like real thieves at all. They would never use violence. They occasionally will allow other people to imagine that they might use violence. They will allow people to like self-intimidate into helping them, but they would never actually do it. Nor would they do anything that puts other people at risk, like in the course of one of their robberies. They wouldn't really they wouldn't like set a fire as a distraction because someone might get hurt or something. And they also wouldn't just steal. They don't just like steal money. Usually, everything is kind of exotic and strange. So these are these kind of like unusual heist things like that were getting really popular in the 60s, like in movies in particular. So like the Pink Panther top copy from an earlier generation, Rififi, or any of Jean Melville's French crime movies. And the Dortmunder takes that basic story of like we're going to steal something strange and we're going to do it in an unusual way, and then we're going to sort of deal with the obstacles that arise in the course of that, improvising their way. Um, so they're sympathetic people. That what they're after is like not anything vital. They're not like stealing money from a company that needs it, or even from a rich person. Usually, they're stealing something weird. It'll be something strange, like a gem or a work of art that it really doesn't matter too much in the general sense of things who has it or who owns it. And so you can hold your sympathies. Um, they hold your sympathies. The other main way is that they hold your sympathies is they have the worst luck in the world. Dortmunder often expresses that he feels cursed. When he begins the story, he's already been in jail twice for felonious thefts, and so if he's in, like he mentioned many times, if he goes in one, gets caught one more time, even one more time, he could be in jail for the rest of his life. So that kind of hangs over the whole course of the book. They really can't get caught um, by the police. There's no question that getting caught is a horrendous outcome. So Westlake's a real pro, and he manipulates the rules of his universe really well to make it clear. Okay, stealing stuff, but not through violence or anything risky. Overcoming obstacles in using wits and general, like, outside of the box thinking. Um, Dealing with immensely bad luck, where, like, at the very time that you go into the room to steal the thing, a whole bunch of, like, a whole convention arrives and they're going to have their annual meeting in the room you need to be in, something like that. And really, 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 really can't get caught because it would be really, really, really bad. So within that confine, then the comedy of the story can occur, and they do crazy, silly stuff that is just intrinsically ridiculous, and it leads them to meet different characters. Like, they often have to meet a fence, it's because they're gonna, like, steal something that then has to be sold in order for them to make money on it. So they meet this fence named Arnie, and Arnie's like just the grossest, most annoying person. He's not a bad person, he's just incredibly annoying to be with, but he is on their side, and he would never turn them in. That's why they keep using him. They will meet, they'll research things, or they'll have to meet experts in other fields or something, or they'll have to get cozy up with someone who's on the inside of the job, and then sometimes that person will find out and wind up helping them anyway. Just intrinsically, by the fact that they're criminals and that they are thieves, not killers or anything, that potentially can lead them anywhere in the universe in search of what they're after. It's important to give, in genre fiction especially, it's important to have your characters reasonably have a reasonable reason have a reason to have access anything that the story might require. So, detectives, right? Detectives investigating a crime potentially have a strong motive to talk to anybody, so that if you need your story to lead them to talk to someone they would normally never have social access to, they can. They're detectives. The what's another good example? Military fiction, where, like, there's a military necessity to what they're doing, and so they have reasons to move and kind of this other thing. Well, with the Dortmunder books, they're thieves, and because of that, you can put them in all sorts of implausible situations. One of my favorites, I think it's in the novel called Good Behavior, is they are going into this high-rise skyscraper to steal something. I forget what. And in the course of it, they accidentally stumble on a secret meeting of mercenaries, and they have to pretend to be there for that meeting. And of course, over time, it becomes increasingly apparent that what these guys are here and planning to do is really, really horrible, and they're really, really dangerous. And how the hell are we going to get out of this? That's a pretty darn good one. Another one would be one of the best ones is called "What's the Worst That Could Happen." I believe it was badly adapted into a movie. Don't bother. But the book itself is pretty good. It's one of the best ones. And in it, Dortmunder has this ring that he wears for good luck, and he's caught by a guy whose house he's trying to rob. He's caught by this guy. He calls the police, and this guy sees Dortmunder's ring and steals it. He tells the police that the ring is actually his, and Dortmunder must have stolen it. And he turns the tables on Dortmunder, and he turns the victim of the burglary into the burglar. It's this great inversion, and Dortmunder is just outraged at this inappropriate inversion of roles, where the man who's supposed to be the thief is suddenly the one who gets robbed. And for once, see, Dortmunder is kind of fatalistic. He really does believe in the bad luck thing. He's good at planning, We never find out exactly why or what his process is, but he is good at planning, and his plans usually at least get them in the door, even if something unexpected happens or they can interrupt it. They at least have, some chance of working. But he's kind of fatalistic, and that's partly what makes him a good planner. Is he can imagine all sorts of things going wrong, but it also makes it hard to get him off the couch. He really, really, really tends to just assume everything's going to go wrong, and when things don't go wrong, he gets nervous. He's similar in this way to the character of Rincewind from Terry Pratchett's Discworld books. Rincewind also feels cursed, like the worst thing, wherever the worst place to be is, he knows he's going to wind up there. He will then survive, but it's going to be terrifying and horrible, and he won't enjoy it. And even if he gets away with something, it wasn't worth it. That's kind of Dortmunder's attitude. If there's the worst place to be, that's where he'll wind up being. And if he gets out of that place, it's almost certainly because he's going somewhere somehow worse. So he's intrinsically sympathetic. It's the guy who comically makes his way through the world, always just managing to survive, but somehow you're like, how did you get how did you let that happen? What is going on? It's that vision of the world, the kind expressed in other books like Rabelais or Till Eulenspiegel. It's that kind of like the trickster, but he's gloomy. Dortmunder is gloomy, and he does not like all the detail of the world that he lives in, and he does not like all of the complexity that people put into it and having to constantly deal with it and knowing that sooner or later he's going to slip up. So it takes a lot to get him going. In fact, in most of the books, as my memory goes anyway, it really needs some pressure to get him involved at all. Either from people outside, like in the Good Behavior book I mentioned, some people catch him in a burglary and they want him to do a burglary for them or they're going to tell the police. So he kind of has to. Or from his fellow thieves or his girlfriend May, who are like, you got to get out there and do something. You can't just sit on the couch all day. He's like, why not? And, so they have to put a lot on him to get him moving. But for once, in What's the Worst That Could Happen, the indignity of having his ring stolen really gets him moving and lights a fire under his butt. And it's really fun to see Dortmunder being so active. And in the course of What's the Worst That Could Happen, he declares a sort of personal vendetta against this guy who is a really, wealthy individual and has interests everywhere. And Dortmunder, one by one, like over the course of the books, I think there's at least 4 major heists, and they all go well. Like, it's unlike anything else in the series. They all work. Dortmunder's plans work. He's focused. He is just knocking these off. He's finding the right people to work with, and they just keep building up and building up. But he wants that ring back, and until he can get to the guy and get the ring actually off his finger, he will not be happy. So it's very satisfying. It's one of the best crime novels that I've read is probably that one. If you had to pull one out of the pile and just start, go ahead and there. You can start with these anywhere, by the way. They're all roughly, they're in that timeless space where all the characters don't really age. There is some movement here and there of minor characters in and out, but basically these are standalone. You join wherever you feel like it. Another one of the ones that I just want to mention that I thought was cool. One of the pleasures of these books, of course, is that Westlake can include little asides, little set pieces, little chapters here and there that humorously develop something new that's going on in the world, or some new thing about New York City, or make some little comment about the way some new things work. Like in a couple of the later books, some of the characters briefly talk about the internet and how all this cyber stuff has affected their trade. They talk about different things going on in the city, like with the mercenaries meeting. That's from one of the books in the 80s when stuff like that was occasionally happening. And where was I going with all this? Oh, it doesn't matter. They're fun. They're well decorated. They're adorned. They're like Christmas trees of caper books. One of the better ones too. Maybe the longest one, I think. It might even be Westlake's longest book, period. It's called Drowned Hopes. And it is in the middle of the series when the formula's been well established. And what makes it neat is that the pressure. This is the closest that the characters really get to being good guy thieves. Is the pressure for the job is another criminal gets out of jail. He'd been in a long time, a bank robber. Dortmunder knew him there, and he knew Dortmunder. And this guy had been in jail long enough, and he's a very dangerous, violent, they imply psychopathic criminal. He was caught before he could retrieve the money from the last job that he did. And this money he hid in a very specific place, and he still knows where it is, but it is now under a lake. While he was in prison, they built a dam, and they flooded the spot where the money is. And he comes to Dortmunder, and he says, John, you are, no one calls him John, he doesn't like it, that's part of their relationship. You are going to help me get this money from under this lake, or I'm going to blow up the dam. I'm going to blow up the dam, which they estimate will kill, several hundred people, if not more, to get at this money. And Dortmunder knows that this guy is serious, and he decides to take it on. So the tension then becomes, although the guy promises a cut of the money in exchange for Dortmunder getting it, it's not really the motive this time. The motive is more, this guy could turn me in, and he's also serious about killing all these people, so how can I accomplish this difficult job really to help people, to save a bunch of people's lives. So they actually have to leave New York City for once, which doesn't happen much in the series, and they have to go upstate and go live in this town while they research the problem. And how they get there, because they also have to manage the guy's impatience. They have to show progress that they're gonna figure it out, because otherwise he might he's old, he might just decide, I'm gonna blow up the dam anyway. So they have to manage this guy's impatience. They have to figure out this very difficult technical problem, and then they have to figure out what are they gonna do if they succeed, because it's pretty clear as the book goes on, this is not a guy who should be loose on the world with a big pile of cash. So negotiating all those pieces, the book I think is about twice as long as the usual one, and it's where you get the most character interactions between the members of Dortmunder's group, and I think there's even a tiny little crossover piece with the members of a completely different novel. If not Drowned Hopes, I think it's Drowned Hopes. See, there's this guy named Joe Gores. He was a crime fiction writer too, and I think he and Westlake got along pretty well. And they had a crossover chapter where the characters from Westlake's book, the Dortmunder Gang, meet characters from Gore's book, 32 Cadillacs, which we'll talk about at some point, because that's one of the best crime novels also, on top of Drowned Hopes and What's the Worst That Can Happen. 32 Cadillacs, put it on the top of your list. And the crossover chapter, to those who follow these series, of course, is very fun and amusing. It's like that episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine where they go back to the Tribble episode, and you're like, oh, it's these guys, blah, 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 blah. And I just like it when authors take advantage and try these little things out, even if it's for a small minority of readers who will ever notice. I just think it's fun. Let's have fun. It's fiction, Anyway, the Dortmunder series. What if you could just take things? What if you didn't have to work? What if you didn't have to threaten anybody or hurt anybody? What if you could just, take stuff and live on it? Not to any crazy degree. These guys aren't crazy spendthrift high living. They just, they just want to make a living without having a regular job. Is that so wrong? Maybe it's so wrong. But, they put their heart and soul into it. And, of course, many times their success, there's by no means any kind of guaranteed success in this series. It's not like one of those things where they always get away with something or what have you. Like there are stakes in each book. So I want to assure you of that. You can't just go in assuming that everything is going to work out, because sometimes it doesn't. This is Westlake putting his talent for plotting and for atmosphere and for little side character pieces and for thinking of these beautiful little moments. You can see why he was such a popular writer to adapt, because he really writes. I mean, partly perhaps he started writing for it, but he knew how to write in a way that you can easily imagine leaping off of a screen. These little pops and these little beats and these little lines, and they're all on good display here in this universe where thieves are, moderately ethical, and where the people they're stealing from are usually kind of jerks on some level, and where everything is always about to go wrong, and where even minor characters can sometimes get a little bit of comeuppance from the forces that normally push all of us down into the gutter. So enjoy them, have fun, bye bye.